Ciao ragazzi, this is Katie Portanova, and you're listening to Florence and Me. I'm a lover of stories and all things Italian, and I'm going to bring you all that in this podcast. My intention is to inspire you to step out of your comfort zone and explore life and travel the world. Join me as I tell you my story and many others about Italy and my love, Florence. Andiamo! Ciao a tutti. I am back for my first episode of December 2021. Almost Christmas time. Well, is Christmas time, but almost Christmas. It has gone by very fast this year. I want to talk a little bit about what usually happens to me around this time. This time usually is when I reflect. I'm sure a lot of you reflect on what has gone down this past year. Now, for me, I usually start to think about what I haven't done and what I should have done, or should, as I've said on probably before, should is an asshole. So I kind of get down on myself. I remember a lot of times on New Year's Eve where I would just cry because I just thought, what the hell have I done? Nothing this past year. And I don't know why I'm starting with this, but I've recently reread this diary from my great-grandfather, my Italian great-grandfather. And I met him a few times when I was a child because he came over from England. And I reread his I would say diary, if you will, that my great uncle Lorenzo, he translated from dialect. And I sat back and read it, and there was a part in his diary that said, I really wish I could have, and not in these exact words, but I really wish I could have brought my wife and my family back to Italy after the war. It was his dream to make his wife happy, to make my nonna happy. And I read this again, realizing that my great-grandmother was a real spitfire. Like, I knew she was, but the things that I reread now, she really made my great-grandfather's life miserable after the war. Anyway, long story short, so my great-grandfather was a prisoner of war for 7 years in Africa, and then he was moved to Canada, and it was all these places. I thought he was just prisoner of war in like Europe, but he was like moved around, shipped around for 7 years. And he settled in kind of a prison camp, if you will, in rural England, where then he became friends with this farmer that was having him as a farmhand, and in the end, the farmhand, the farmer let him go because he knew that he had a family, and he let the other prisoner go that was with my great-grandfather, and he went back to Italy to find my grandma and his family. And the story gets really sad after that because it seems like my great-grandmother had, she was very, very resentful and very angry with my great-grandfather, from what I can tell in his writing. And one would be after disappearing for 7 years. You don't know if he's dead or alive. And, so his wish was always to make her happy, is what I'm trying to pinpoint here. After the war and when he moved back to their little town in Forneta, in Monteferino, they struggled a lot because they didn't have a lot, and it was after the war and everything was scarce, and I don't know how those little villages survived, and not a lot of them did after the war. So my great-grandfather made it his duty to try to find a better job because his subsidies and his pay for being in the military were up. So he needed to find something quickly in order to provide for his family, his four kids and his wife. And he found a few jobs and he lost them because other people had applied for them. Because imagine, like, you know, I can't even imagine war-torn Italy, you know, people coming back from the war and people struggling to find a job. Like, I can't even imagine the turmoil he was in as the head of the household, if you will. And he went even as far to like move his family to Belgium. Can you imagine? Like, I don't think I wouldn't be here if they moved to Belgium, because my grandfather, my papa, met my nonna in the hotel in London. So it's very interesting, the trajectory where my family had ended up, because again, I wouldn't be talking to you right now if they ended up in Belgium. And he ended up calling back that farmer in a town called Ledbury, and asked him for help. Asked him for help with his papers and to get his family over. And in the end, he slowly brought, you know, his family over, at least part of his family, and then, you know, other friends coming over as well. And so they lived in this very rural area, really far from London, like north of London. And what really stuck with me as these years went on, because the kids all worked, like Francesco, my uncle Francesco, Luigi, Lorenzo, who's the one I'm really close to now, like he was still a child, so he was going to school. My nana was working as a domestic help. So she didn't go back to school. I mean, I think she was like 15 maybe when they came over to England. Anyway, so that was my long story short, kind of, about him. So my feeling in my body is I feel him around me these days. And because maybe I read that part in his diary that said, basically, I yearned to take my family back to Italy, and I never got to. And, you know, unfortunately not to, but fortunately, they made a life. His kids made a life, and now their kids and my great cousins and all, you know, everyone on that side of my family are very, they're good. They made a life for themselves, and nothing, you know, nothing went wrong. But this feeling of yearning to be somewhere else is where I'm at right now. About probably 3.5 years ago, in the midst of buying this house that we're in now outside of Chicago, I was really struggling with this feeling of like, I don't belong here. And in September, when I was in Florence, it sealed the deal when I told you guys the story of being in my church and hearing a voice that says you're home. So there's this like really strong connection that I can't explain it. But I recently started meditating again, and those of you, I mean, I think some of you guys think I meditate all the time, and I really don't. This whole year has been about my business and growing Truly Italy and making it, you know, look pretty in the interwebs, you know. So I kind of put the meditating on to the wayside, because I think I just had a hard year last year. And I didn't want to sit in my feelings again. So when I meditated yesterday, the day before, I started visualizing my house in Tuscany, because I know it's there. It's waiting for me, or us. Obviously, I'm still a Stefano, but I'm always saying me, because I feel very strongly that I'm being pulled back There's this magnetic force that's saying, oh, when are you coming back? Because we're here. Your house is here. Your people are here. Your wine is here. Your food is here. I know in my bones that I'm going to be back in my homeland sooner than my retirement, as I've mentioned before, because Stefano and I do plan on retiring there, but my vision is sooner. I'm going to be there sooner. And I started listening to my faves, Brene Brown, some podcasts, other types of podcasts that kind of like solidify the fact that I know what I know to be true. And my body is telling me, even if my ego's going, oh, what the hell? You don't know if you're going to be alive tomorrow, or you don't know if, things might not work out, or you don't know, like the whatever you call your ego, I call my ego Barry. So if you're Barry listening, no offense, but Barry is a bastard, and he's in my head, and he tells me things that aren't true, and they're my thoughts, and they're not my thoughts. They're not who I am, my thoughts. So I hear Barry say, you could die tomorrow. Or, you and Stefano can't make it work. You're going to have to be stuck there. And like, oh, what do you think? You can afford a house in Tuscany, and you can do like, okay, so all this stuff, I'm sure a lot of us have these thoughts, right? It's inevitable. We all have the bastard that is our ego that tells us things that aren't true, basically protecting us from feeling and from being disappointed, right? So the quote that I always go back to is, what's meant for me won't miss me. So I know my house in Tuscany is not going to miss me. It's sitting there. It's very pretty. It has a vineyard in the back, or I'm looking at somebody's vineyard. It's there. It's being cultivated. It's being loved right now by somebody else. I already see it. I vividly saw a friend of mine and I meditating in my backyard in Tuscany. And oh my God, it was amazing. The feeling was like, oh my God, that's it. This is where it should be. Take me there now. As we all like to be in the space that we want to be in now. We want to go now. I want to go there now. Like, the journey is what sometimes is hard for me to accept. Waiting patiently. Patience is a virtue. Yes, virtue, but it's not it's not Katie's strong suit. I am not at all patient. And some people might think, "Oh, you're so patient." No, I'm not. I'm not. I've told you I've started trying to draw more. I'll be honest. I'm not doing too well on that. I was trying to do it once a day, just a little bit. It's patience. Patience, Katie. Patience. So this fear that I'm not going to be able to live in my most favorite country, in my most favorite place in the world, is telling me something that I don't want to hear, right? I don't want to hear this. Thank you, fear, for telling me that I might die tomorrow. I understand. But I don't need to listen to you right now. I know that this fear is telling me that this is so important. This vision I have of even having a house next to my house as part of my retreats. Like, I literally started visualizing that. Like, this is very important to me. Like, and if you're just starting to listen to me and you're like, oh, it's just this girl wanting to do retreats in Italy. Everybody wants to do that. Yoga, meditation, whatever. I am seriously serious about my love and joy and respect for the people and the culture of Italy. I don't know if I probably know some people that are that's this obsessed, but I'm really obsessed. Like I could just talk to anybody who is obsessed with Italy all day, all night, and just brainstorm and think of new places to go and tell me where'd you go, what restaurant? Like I can't stress it. I can't. So which brings me back to my great grandpa and I feel like when I visualize these things and I visualize going back to a place where he couldn't, it was too hard. It was after the war. There was nowhere to live. It was food scarcities, like everything, every obstacle, what he didn't want to put his family through. I feel him saying, what are you waiting for? You have friends there. You have connections there. You love it there. Why are you there? Why are you in Chicago? Another little story about my great grandpa is he, like me, moved abroad. And he worked, he got a green card and he worked for my grandfather's company in Chicago. He worked in a factory. And for 12 years, 12 years he was here. 2 months out of the year, he would go back to London and spend time with his family and my great cousins and my aunts and uncles and stuff. So from 1950, 1950, I have it here, right here. I know he came back in 71. So he left. I should have done 1959. I was right. Yeah. He went on a boat from Southampton in England and he arrived, almost a week later in 1959. So he sent money back, as a lot of people do, like a lot of immigrants from Mexico, from different types of South American countries that they come up here, they work and they, send money back. 12 years, guys. Like that was my dream to live 12 years in Italy. Like I hope I'm able to live at least 12 years in Italy. I only made it 4.5, but his spirit is in me. This free spirit, wanting to explore, wanting to not only support and help his family financially. I think he really enjoyed. I mean, I don't know. He was very soft-spoken. Of course, I was like 5 or 6 years old when I would see him, maybe 8. So it's not like I could have like deep conversations with him. But the fact that he was willing, like my adorable husband, willing to come to the States and find a job and work his ass off, which he said in his diary that he would make a 40-hour week here of money. Oh no, 40-hour week here of money was like an 84-hour week in England. So he worked less and made more, which is exactly what Stefano's doing. Stefano's doing the exact same thing. And so anyway, his spirit is in me. I know he's guiding me and I know he's saying, he seems like a very patient person as opposed to myself. So even though I'm thinking he's saying like, what are you waiting for? I'm sure he's saying like, what are you waiting for? But wait a second. I know what you're doing. Like, you can't just up and leave. I know people do that. I'm not Frances Mays. But people up and leave and like, sell their house and fly across the country and try to find a house. Try to find across the world, not the country. But I know it's in our future. And I know Stefano, when the time comes and we're like, okay, it's time. Because the house we bought here in Chicago is the only house we're buying in the States. Like, I'm not moving anywhere else because I know all my money and all my time and all my love and all my passion is going to be back in Tuscany and back in Italy, back in Florence, wherever we're going to settle. That's where I'm going to be. So I want to end this with, I want you guys all to think about if there's anybody out there that is feeling you're destined to be and live somewhere else. Like really sort of visualizing that life. And I don't know if the girls I met a couple months ago, I was doing like a Zoom call with a bunch of multi-passionate, amazing women. And a few of the women talked about living abroad somewhere. And I really hope they start visualizing what that is, what that means for them. And as I told one of the girls, and I remember one of the girls I talked to on this call, and she really resonated with my story because she dreams about building like a nonprofit building or organization, charity in Nicaragua. And I told her, just know that your retreat center or your community center is already being built just by you saying it out loud now. So I'm going to take my own advice and be like, my house is already there. It's being built, or it's built. It's definitely built because, come on. I'm not going to build a house in Italy. That's a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of things you don't want to deal with. I know it's there. I know it's waiting for us. It's waiting for us to love it and for us to settle down in it and to live the rest of our lives in it. And the other quote that I always love because it makes me feel like, okay, yes, it's right. From A Course in Miracles, the book A Course in Miracles, this quote is, "Those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety." Those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety. And that is exactly what I'm doing. As much as I do have an immense amount of anxiety, I'm waiting because I'm certain. Italy is my future. I do not belong here. I do not belong in this country. I miss my country. I do. So after hearing my passionate talk today, I want you all to know that I still have spots open for my first Truly Italy Italian retreat in June 2022. And I know this variant is probably freaking a lot of people out. Totally understand. But you only live once. And I doubt Italy is going to ever close its borders to Americans ever again. Because we are probably the biggest spenders for them. So I don't have any doubt in my mind that I will be taking people around Cittona and all the beautiful places in Tuscany that week. So June 4th to June 11th, 2022. Look up my website, trulyitalies.tours, for more information. And it's going to be amazing. I hope you feel my passion through this episode today. I'm not in a hurry to do all this, as I said in my last episode. Like, I'm certain that I will find you amazing, Italy obsessed people. because my love for this country, my love for sharing my stories and sharing my insight and sharing these amazing vineyards and restaurants and people to explain the history of this country, I can't fake it. Like it's in my body. It's exuding out of my pores. So, if you're ready, if you're wanting to commit, it's a $500 deposit for the week in Tuscany. I truly hope you come with me sometime. I love meeting new people and learning about them. Their stories. Always about stories. Allora, è tempo di andare. Grazie mille per ascoltare questo episodio. E allora, buona giornata, buona serata, buonanotte. And I'll see you on the next one. A presto. Ciao. I am beyond grateful for you listening to my podcast right now. I am so excited to share my journey of living abroad and all of my stories of Florence and Italy and all the places in between that I've visited. If this has reached you in any way and you would like to continue, please subscribe now. Also, go check out my website, trulyitaly.tours, for all my travel experiences. Ci si vede. Ciao.